The galaxy was not ready for the sound that echoed through the deep void. It was not a real sound, but a strange vibration that spread through long-range scanners, warning stations, and patrol ships. Every sensor felt the same quiet message. Something enormous was moving toward the center of the galaxy. Something that did not match any ship recorded in the last 1,000 years. Inside the Galaxy Council Hall, a giant round chamber filled with glowing platforms. The leaders of 23 star nations gathered in panic. Their eyes were fixed on the hologram floating at the center of the room. It showed a dark region of space, and in that darkness a shadow slowly grew larger, almost as if it was pushing the stars aside. The hall was silent. Even the air felt colder. Counselor Thalan, the oldest member, leaned forward and spoke in a shaky voice. "It cannot be them. It cannot be the humans. Terra was destroyed. Their fleets were broken. They were scattered. No one agreed. No one disagreed. They only stared at the shadow that kept growing. Reports had been coming in for weeks. One trade ship said its engines shut down for no reason as a huge object passed nearby. Another ship, a patrol cruiser, sent a scrambled message about a ship as large as a continent before its signal suddenly ended. A mining station close to the outer rim showed a flash of white light in its final transmission, followed by silence. Every report said the same thing. A giant vessel moving through the dark, silent and unstoppable. But the Council refused to believe the rumors. After all, humanity was a small race once, weak, divided, easy to control. The Council had ordered Terra to follow strict rules. Humans were banned from building strong weapons. They were not allowed to explore far space, and when humans resisted, the Council punished them. Terra was pushed out of the galactic community. Their name was removed from star maps. Many believed humans had died out. But now the shadow said otherwise. A sudden alarm broke the silence in the council hall. A new message flashed on screen. It came from a small scout ship near the outer sectors. The pilot was breathing fast, panic shaking every word. "This is Scout Ship Helix. We found the source of the disturbance. It is not a fleet. It is one ship. One single ship. It's bigger than any dreadnought. Bigger than a city. Engines are glowing like blue suns. Hull is covered in moving red lights. We are trying to keep distance." The pilot paused. A deep vibration shook his ship. Loose tools floated, then slammed back to the floor. "It's powering something up. I think it sees us." Static filled the last few seconds of the message. Then the signal ended forever. In the council hall, fear spread like cold fire. A younger member whispered, "It is the Terran Flagship." Another replied softly, "But Terra never had a flagship. They were not allowed to build anything larger than a battle cruiser." "They were not allowed," a third member said. "But humans do not forget, and they do not forgive." Far across space, the giant shadow finally stepped into the light of a distant star. Its metallic surface glowed like molten steel. Long red lines pulsed across its hull like veins full of fire. Hundreds of thrusters burned with a blue-white shine that cut through the darkness. The ship was terrifying in size. It looked less like a ship and more like a moving fortress. Its name, written in bright silver letters, was Eclipse Prime, the Terran Flagship. The first Terran ship seen in more than 60 years. But this ship was far beyond anything humans had ever shown before. It had a presence like a living creature, a silent storm wrapped in armor, a machine built not just for war, but for revenge, survival, and justice. Inside the flagship, Admiral Rhea Solari stood on the command deck. She watched the stars slide past the wide windows. Her eyes were calm, her posture strong. Years of exile had hardened her people. Terra had become a world in hiding, building, training, preparing. Humans were once scattered, but now they were united under one flag and one purpose. "Distance to council space?" she asked. 2 hours, her officer replied. "Enemy fleets are moving to intercept." Admiral Solari nodded slowly. "They still do not understand. They think we came for destruction." Another officer looked at her. "Do we send a warning message?" "No," Solari said. "They ignored our words in the past. This time they will listen to our actions." The flagship continued its path, cutting through space like a silent blade. Back in the council hall, screens started to shake as new data appeared. The Terran vessel was moving faster than any known ship. Defense fleets were forming walls to stop it, but the flagship showed no change in direction. "It's coming straight for us," said a nervous commander. Open communication channels, Counselor Thalen ordered. We must speak with them. But no reply came. The Terran Flagship refused every message. Then something even more frightening happened. The ship began to charge a massive energy source at its center. Light gathered between its forward plates. Space itself seemed to bend around the energy. Alarms rang across every star system. What is it doing? Asked a trembling voice. The answer came from a scientist on the council floor. It is preparing a superweapon. The hall turned silent again. No one breathed. No one blinked. For the first time in centuries, the powerful leaders of the galaxy felt fear. The Terrans had returned, and the galaxy was already too late to stop them. For many in the galaxy, the return of the Terran Flagship felt sudden, like a storm appearing in a clear sky. But for humans, the moment had been building for decades. Their rise did not begin in fire or war. It began in silence, far from the eyes of the Council, in the long shadows of betrayal. 60 years earlier, Terra had stood alone. Their diplomats were ignored. Their warnings were laughed at. Their rights were stripped away one by one. The Council claimed humans were too young to hold advanced technology, too emotional to manage deep space exploration, too dangerous even to defend themselves. When humanity resisted, the Council made an example of them. Fleets surrounded Terra. Industries were shut down. Scientists were taken. Cities were starved. Humanity was forced to kneel. The galaxy believed this was the end of Terra, but it was only the beginning. What the Council did not know was that their pressure forged something stronger. Humans were pushed to the edge, but on that edge they found unity they never had before. Old nations collapsed, replaced by a single banner, the Terran Union. Old grudges faded. Old rivals joined hands. Humanity became one people, with one heartbeat and one goal: survive, and then rise again. Deep under Terra's surface, abandoned mines and forgotten tunnels became hidden labs and secret shipyards. The Council thought Terra was broken, but Terra was building. Every month, more scientists disappeared from Council databases. Every year, more ships were reported lost near Terran space. No one connected the dots. No one believed the humans had the courage to fight back. But they did. The rise truly began with a single woman, Rhea Solari. Born during the darkest days of the blockade, she grew up hearing stories of how her people had been pushed down, silenced, crushed. But she also grew up hearing how humans refused to die. Even as a child, she understood something simple. Humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was will. At 19, she joined the hidden Terran Defense Program. At 24, she led a secret mission to rescue forbidden Terran scientists from a Council prison. At 30, she unified the remaining human fleets. And at 35, she became admiral. But her greatest work came when she turned her focus to a dream many thought impossible: building a flagship greater than any in the galaxy. The first blueprint was drawn in a quiet bunker under the Andes Mountains. A simple idea formed the heart of the design: create something they cannot control, something they cannot predict, something that will not break. The project was named Eclipse Prime. Hundreds of thousands of humans worked in silence. They mined rare metals from their moon. They built reactors stronger than anything allowed by the Council. They gathered every secret, every scrap of data, every banned experiment. And slowly, piece by piece, the greatest Terran ship in history took shape. When the Council finally realized humans were building something, they sent spies, then warnings, then threats. But the humans ignored them. Not out of pride, but because they remembered what the Council had done. Humans had begged for peace once. They were ignored, so now humans built in silence, and the galaxy never saw the full picture. While the Council believed Terra was weak, the Terran Union sent hidden fleets into deep, dark space where no one traveled. There, in the silent fields between stars, they tested weapons powerful enough to break moons. They built armor dense enough to resist a fleet bombardment. They created energy shields unlike anything the galaxy had imagined. Most importantly, humans trained, not as soldiers of separate nations, but as a single united force. Every cadet learned the same lessons. Every officer carried the same memory of humiliation. Every Terran learned the same truth: never bow again. Years passed. Eclipse Prime grew larger. Its shadow stretched across Terra like a new mountain. Its engines glowed even when powered down. Its reactors hummed with a strange, dangerous calm. Each time a scientist asked Admiral Solari why they needed a ship this powerful, her answer was always the same: to survive. But deep in her heart, she knew there was another reason: to be heard. As Terra prepared, the galaxy grew arrogant. They stopped watching the humans. They believed Terra had accepted its fate. They believed the humans had broken for good. Their mistake allowed the Terran Union to finish the last stage of their rise. Then came the final push into exile. When the Council sent fleets to inspect Terra, humanity made a choice. They could accept the final chains or they could vanish. Admiral Solari chose the second option. Using hidden wormhole drives, the Terran Union shifted their shipyards and fleets into a dead region of space, far beyond the Council's reach. The galaxy thought Terra had collapsed. Terra had gone dark by choice. In that darkness, the final pieces of Eclipse Prime were installed. The main cannon, a weapon using gravity itself as ammunition. The shield system, strong enough to bend enemy fire. The engines capable of crossing a star system in minutes. The AI core designed to operate even if the crew fell. When Eclipse Prime took its first breath, the planet shook. Humanity had built something that was not only a warship. It was a message meant for those who once broke them. Admiral Solari gathered her people before the flagship for the final speech. Her words were simple, clear, and sharp like steel. They pushed us down. They silenced us. They erased us. But humans rise, always. Today, we return to the galaxy not as victims, not as rebels, but as a power they cannot deny. Across Terra, millions watched the launch. As Eclipse Prime rose from the dry docks with a slow, mighty roar, every human felt the same truth. The age of silence was over. Now humanity would speak again, and the galaxy would be forced to listen. The galaxy's fear grew with every passing hour. As Eclipse Prime moved deeper into Council space, star systems watched in silence. Civilian ships changed routes. Patrol fleets avoided the dark path of the Terran Flagship. Everywhere screens showed the same thing. A ship so large it looked like a moving continent, glowing with cold fire. But not everyone stayed away. One of the strongest powers in the galaxy, the Varkos Dominion, decided they would not let a single Terran ship pass. The Dominion's leaders believed humans were bluffing. They believed the stories of lost fleets and vanished stations were lies or accidents. They believed the Terran Flagship was simply an oversized relic, not a real threat. So they gathered a blockade. More than 200 warships formed a massive wall across the star lane. Battleships, cruisers, missile carriers, drone swarms, and even planetary defense stations were pulled from their orbits to join the blockade. Their formation looked like a metal horizon stretching endlessly across space. Inside the lead Dominion ship, the commander laughed. "It is only one ship," he said. "Even humans are not foolish enough to attack 200 warships." His officers nodded, but their eyes told a different story. Many felt a cold pressure deep in their chests, as if the flagship's shadow was already touching them. Hours later, Eclipse Prime entered the system. It did not slow down. It did not turn. It came straight toward the blockade. Inside the Terran Flagship, Admiral Rhea Solari stood at the center of the bridge. Her posture was calm, her hands behind her back. Her officers watched the approaching blockade on the main screen. The Dominion fleet looked like a bright field of metal stars, each glowing with engines and weapon heat. "Enemy fleet at full power," a Terran officer said. "Weapon locks detected," another voice followed. "They are calling us," Solari shook her head. "Ignore them." The Dominion commander called again, louder, sharper, angrier. "Terran vessel, you are entering restricted space. Turn around or you will be fired upon." Eclipse Prime did not reply. The commander tried a third time. "Terrans, this is your final warning." Still no answer. The Dominion commander slammed his fist on the control board. "Very well. Fire all weapons." Hundreds of ships unleashed their fire at the same time. Missiles streaked through space like burning arrows. Plasma beams lit the darkness. High-energy cannons fired bursts bright enough to blind sensors. Even the distant planetary defense stations launched long-range projectiles. It was the kind of attack that could destroy moons. Inside Eclipse Prime, alarms remained silent. "Shields at full?" Admiral Solari asked. "Full," her officer replied. The entire bridge held its breath. The enemy fire rained down on the Terran ship like a storm of metal and light. Explosions bloomed across the flagship's surface. Plasma streams crawled across the armor. Shockwaves rolled across the hull like ripples in an ocean. But when the light faded, Eclipse Prime remained untouched, not a single dent, not a single burn. The Terran shields held as if the attack were nothing, more than a breeze. A deep silence spread across the Dominion fleet. The commander stared at his screen. Impossible. That should have broken their ship apart. His officers said nothing. They only watched the Terran Flagship move forward, slow and steady like a mountain drifting through space. On Eclipse Prime, Admiral Solari raised one hand. "Target the lead ship," she said. "Prepare the silent beam." Her officers nodded. They had trained for this moment for years. They pressed the controls with smooth, practiced motions. The weapon core awakened. A soft hum filled the ship, deep and powerful, like the sound of a giant heart beating. A thin crack of white light formed at the front of the flagship. "Ready," the weapons officer said. Solari gave a single nod. The silent beam fired. There was no explosion, no blast, no dramatic flare of color. The beam was quiet, almost gentle, like a simple line of light moving across space. But everything it touched vanished. The Dominion's lead battleship dissolved from existence in an instant. Armor, engines, weapons, crew, everything turned to dust and scattered through the void. The ship did not break. It erased. A scream echoed across Dominion channels. What was that? Where did the ship go? It disappeared. But before anyone could react, the beam spread into a fan of light and swept across the blockade. One moment, the blockade stretched across the star lane in a line of metal giants. The next moment, half the ships were simply gone. No fire, no wreckage. Just empty space where they once were. Eclipse Prime continued forward, drifting past the ruins of the blockade as if passing through fog. Terran officers looked at Admiral Solari with quiet respect and fear. They had built this weapon, but seeing it in action was different. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Dominion commander trembled. He tried to speak, but words stuck in his throat. His officers watched him in silence, waiting for orders. Finally, he whispered the only command left: "Retreat." But the retreat came too late. The Terran Flagship had already slipped past the surviving ships and entered deeper into the system. Across the galaxy, news spread like a shockwave. The Council received thousands of messages within minutes. Civilizations panicked. Armies prepared for war or desperately tried to surrender. Entire sectors froze, unsure of what would come next. The Terran Flagship had defeated a fleet of 200 warships without taking a single hit. On Eclipse Prime, Admiral Solari looked at the star map showing their next destination. "They will try to send diplomats now," she said quietly. "They will beg for peace." Her second-in-command turned toward her. "Will we answer them?" Solari's eyes were cold and steady. "No. They did not listen to us when we asked for peace. Now they will listen to us only through strength." Eclipse Prime accelerated, its engines burning bright enough to cast long shadows across the dead remains of the blockade. The first strike had ended, but the true storm was only beginning. The destruction of the Dominion blockade spread across the galaxy, faster than lightspeed messages. Every major capital, every military base, every market world, and every border outpost replayed the same footage again and again. The Terran Flagship, Eclipse Prime, drifting calmly through a field of disappearing ships. No explosions, no debris, no chance to fight back. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten a long time ago: fear. Entire star nations held emergency meetings. Government screens flashed red alerts. Military leaders barked orders that contradicted each other. Civilian channels screamed with rumors. Some said Terra had discovered ancient god tech. Others claimed the Terrans had made a pact with dark energy beings. A few believed humanity had evolved into something new, but one truth echoed louder than all the rumors. The Terrans were no longer weak. Inside the council hall, tension thickened the air. The hologram of Eclipse Prime hovered above the round table, glowing like a silver-blue star. The council members watched in silence, each one afraid to speak first. Councillor Thalan finally broke the silence. His voice was thin and tired. "We cannot pretend this is a small threat. Their weapon destroyed a fleet in seconds." Another member, Councillor Vess, leaned forward. "Destroyed? That weapon didn't destroy anything. It erased those ships. Erased them, no fire, no wreckage, no remains. This is beyond anything we understand. A cold shiver ran through the hall. Ambassadors whispered among themselves. Some wanted to negotiate, some wanted to surrender, some demanded war. But none of them knew exactly how to deal with a power they once mocked. A trembling diplomat from the Karth Dominion stood up. We should have listened to the warnings from years ago. The humans asked for fair treatment. We ignored them. We believed they were harmless. Now look what they have become. A silence followed. Then another voice spoke, colder than the others. Maybe humans planned this all along. Maybe their weakness was a trick. No, Counselor Thalin replied. We made them into this. We forced them into fear. Fear became anger. Anger became unity. And unity made them strong. The hall fell into complete silence. The galaxy now understood something terrible. They had created their own enemy. Meanwhile, Eclipse Prime moved deeper into Council space, straight toward the core systems. Every ship in the region tracked the Terran Flagship. Fleets moved out of its path like prey fleeing a predator. Entire colonies shut down travel routes and hid behind planetary shields. In some places, old propaganda about dangerous humans suddenly vanished from networks. In others, statues celebrating past victories over Terra were quietly removed. No one wanted to provoke the Terrans anymore. Some governments even prepared surrender documents before the humans arrived. Inside Eclipse Prime, the atmosphere felt very different. The Terran crew worked with calm focus. They checked weapons, monitored signals, watched the star map. But deep inside, each of them felt something heavy spreading through their thoughts. They had waited their whole lives for this moment. But now that the galaxy finally feared them, the victory felt bitter. Admiral Rhea Solari stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The distant lights of thousands of ships fled from the flagship's path, creating a dark tunnel in space. Her second-in-command approached quietly. Admiral, new messages from multiple systems. They want to negotiate. Some are offering complete surrender. Solari did not turn around. No negotiations. They say they want peace. Solari's voice was calm, but her eyes were cold. They want peace now because they are afraid. But where was their peace when Terra begged for it? The officer nodded slowly. Understood. For Solari, this mission was not about revenge. It was about truth. The galaxy needed to face what it had done. The Terran people needed their voice back. And Solari knew one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy listened only when it feared something. Fear made them finally open their ears. Across the galaxy, panic continued to grow. Worlds near the Council core sent evacuation ships into deep space. Rich families fled their estates and hid in secure bunkers. Armies scrambled into defensive rings around their capitals. Even the mighty Varkos Dominion, once filled with pride, now sent desperate messages for help. Their high command trembled at every new report of the Terran flagship moving closer, but not everyone was afraid. Some races, old allies of humans who had once tried to defend Terra, began gathering their own fleets, not to fight the Terrans but to offer support. Small groups of ships followed the flagship at a distance, unsure if Admiral Solari would welcome them or push them away. Still they followed, because they remembered human kindness from years long gone. While the rest of the galaxy panicked, a different storm grew inside the Council itself. Leaders blamed each other, shouting across the hall. You started the sanctions. You pushed them into exile. You shut down their science. This is your fault. No, it's yours. The arguments grew louder and louder until a heavy voice silenced the room. Counselor Vess stood up, her expression grim. Enough. Blaming each other will not stop that ship. She pointed at the hologram of Eclipse Prime. That ship is not just metal. It is the anger of 1 billion humans. It is the weight of every broken promise we made to them. It is the result of our arrogance. Another member whispered, What do we do now? Vess shook her head. We cannot stop them with force. The Dominion tried. We all saw the result. Someone else suggested, What if we open the old Terran case files? Show them we understand our mistakes? Another counselor hissed, You think humans want apologies? They want power now. They want justice. And they know we cannot deny them anymore. A dark truth settled in the air. The galaxy finally understood Terra, but it understood too late. Far across space, Eclipse Prime approached the edge of the Council core. The stars ahead glowed brighter. The defensive fleets waited like nervous hunters who knew they might soon become prey. Admiral Solari watched the path ahead. Her eyes were steady. "The time has come," she said softly. "The galaxy will face the truth." Behind her, the Terran crew straightened, ready for what would come next. The galaxy had feared humans once. Now the galaxy feared them again, and this time, nothing would be the same. Eclipse Prime entered the outer edge of the Council's core systems, where the brightest stars burned and the richest worlds floated like jewels in space. This region was the heart of galactic power. Every law, every order, every decision that had once crushed Terra had come from here. Now the Terran Flagship was coming to return the voice stolen from humanity. Across dozens of planets, alarms rang in every city. Children were rushed into shelters. Markets closed. Ships fled in long lines toward the dark outer systems. Even the wealthiest nobles who once laughed at the idea of human rebellion now hid beneath their palaces, afraid of the approaching shadow. The Council, desperate and shaken, gathered all their forces. They brought together the largest defense fleet ever assembled in the last 6 centuries. More than 800 ships waited at the border of the core. Battleships, carriers, fortress ships, drone hives, shield barges, and even experimental prototypes the galaxy had never tested before. It was a wall of metal, fire, and fear. Inside the command ship of the Council fleet, Admiral Vurak, a veteran of 100 wars, stared at the hologram of Eclipse Prime. His massive hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. "Is the Terran vessel slowing down?" he asked. "No," his officer replied. "It is coming straight toward us. How fast?" The officer swallowed. "Faster than anything we've ever recorded." Vurak stared at the screen again. The Terran Flagship moved like a falling star, its thrusters burning bright blue against the darkness. It didn't seem to fly. It seemed to glide through space, as if the void itself shifted to make way for it. A strange feeling crept up Vurak's spine. The feeling a warrior gets when facing something he knows he cannot defeat, but he pushed the feeling down. He was a commander. He would fight. Inside Eclipse Prime, the Terran crew worked with calm discipline. Despite the danger, the ship felt strangely quiet. Officers spoke softly. Weapons charged silently. Every step echoed like a heartbeat inside the great metal halls. Admiral Rhea Solari stood on the command deck, her eyes unblinking as she watched the enormous Council fleet waiting ahead. Her second-in-command approached. "We're in range, Admiral." Solari nodded slowly. "Activate Eclipse mode." The officer hesitated. "Are you sure, Admiral? We've only tested it twice." Solari looked at him with steady eyes. "This is why we built it." The officer nodded and turned to his station. Deep inside the ship, the reactors roared to life. Energy surged through the flagship like rivers of lightning. The hull darkened, then brightened, then shifted into a strange shimmering glow. Light bent around the ship. Shadows twisted into strange shapes. Gravity rippled outward in slow waves. Eclipse Prime looked like it was wrapped in a moving cloud of darkness and light. Almost like a living eclipse across the Council fleet, officers panicked. "What is that?" "It's bending space. No known ship can do that." "It's impossible." Every ship in the fleet raised shields to maximum. Weapon cores hummed at full charge. Engines pushed back to hold formation. But even with all their power, the fleet felt like a herd of frightened animals facing a predator they had never seen before. On Eclipse Prime, the weapons officer spoke. "Eclipse mode stable. All systems ready." Rhea Solari lifted her hand slowly. "Begin." The Terran Flagship fired its first shot, but this time, it was not the silent beam. This time, the space around the flagship twisted violently outward, creating a gravitational pulse so strong that even distant asteroids snapped into dust. The pulse spread across space like a dark wave. When it touched the Council fleet, the effect was immediate. Ships shook violently. Their shields flickered. Weapons cut out. Drones spiraled away, unable to maintain formation. One battleship was pulled sideways and crashed into a cruiser. Another broke apart from the force, its hull splitting like paper. Chaos erupted. Shields failing. "Engines offline. We're losing control." Admiral Vurak tried to stand, but the gravity pulse slammed him back into his chair. "Hold formation," he shouted, though he knew the command was meaningless. Eclipse Prime moved closer, weaving through the crippled ships like a silent giant. Its hull glowed with shifting energy. The Terran crew watched enemy ships break apart without firing a single Terran weapon. But then the enemy gathered what strength they had left. "Fire everything," Admiral Vurak ordered. Hundreds of weapons lit the darkness. Missiles streaked through space. Plasma beams burned bright. Railguns thundered. The galaxy's greatest arsenal unleashed everything it had. The attacks hit Eclipse Prime and vanished. The energy from the enemy weapons bent around the Terran Flagship, pulled aside by the gravity field. Absorbed, dissolved, erased. Inside Eclipse Prime, the defense officer spoke calmly. "Minimal impact. Shield stable." Solari gave a quiet breath, not of relief, but of acceptance. Terrans had built something the galaxy was not ready for. She raised her hand again. "End this." The silent beam fired. This time it cut through the core of the Council fleet, a clean line of white light slicing through dozens of ships at once. The vessels vanished, erased like shadows under sunlight. Their captains did not even have time to scream. Admiral Vurak watched in helpless horror. His ship trembled. The beam passed just meters away from his flank, removing half his escort wing. His voice shook. We cannot win." No one argued. The Council fleet, strong, proud, unchallenged for centuries, collapsed in minutes. Eclipse Prime drifted forward, glowing with the calm power of a rising storm. Its hull shimmered with the light of 1,000 stars bending around it. Its presence filled the battlefield like a living force. Across the galaxy, live broadcast captured everything. Billions watched in silence. The truth spread like a fire in dry grass. The Terran Flagship was unstoppable. Inside the command deck, Solari lowered her hand. "Prepare to move toward the Council capital. It is time." Her officers nodded. Their faces showed pride, fear, awe, and sorrow. The galaxy's greatest fleet lay broken behind them. Ahead lay the capital. Ahead lay the justice Terra had been denied, and no power in the galaxy could stop what was coming. The path toward the Council capital lay open. No fleets remained strong enough to block the Terran Flagship. No empire dared to fire another shot. The defeat of the Council's greatest defense force spread across the galaxy like a cold wind. Even worlds that once hated humanity now whispered the same fear. Nothing can stop the Terrans now. But inside Eclipse Prime, the atmosphere was not one of celebration. There was no cheering, no music, no prideful speeches. The ship felt strangely heavy, as if every metal plate carried the memories of the past 60 years. Admiral Rhea Solari stood at the front window, watching the shining glow of the Council's central star grow larger. This region was the heart of the galaxy's power. In her childhood, she had seen pictures of the Council capital, floating cities, crystal towers, grand academies. Back then, Terra had been forced to see this place as the center of civilization. Now humanity was coming to speak for itself. Her second-in-command stepped beside her. "Admiral, all systems ready. We reach the capital in 20 minutes. Solari nodded, but her mind was somewhere far deeper. "Prepare the truth broadcast." He hesitated. "Are we sure they will listen?" Solari's voice was calm. "They will have no choice." Outside the ship, the capital system slowly revealed its full glory. A ring of shining habitats orbited the blue-white star. Massive trade hubs, science stations, and military towers floated in perfect formation. The central world, Council Prime, gleamed like a jewel. Silver oceans, golden plains, white cities brighter than snow. Until today, these worlds believed themselves untouchable. That belief ended when Eclipse Prime entered orbit. Across the capital system, every sensor lit up red. Sirens roared in cities. Families ran into underground shelters. Soldiers rushed into defensive lines, even though they knew their weapons meant nothing against the Terran Flagship. The council hall trembled with noise as leaders argued and panicked. "We must surrender immediately." "No, they will destroy us." "Open communication, beg them for mercy." "We cannot let them take the core." But when the hologram of Eclipse Prime appeared above the table again, the room fell silent. This time the shadow felt even larger, almost like the ship itself was watching them. Counselor Thalan looked older than ever. "We created this," he whispered, "and now we pay the price." A moment later, all screens in the capital went black. Then a single image appeared across every broadcast tower, every device, every hologram. Admiral Rhea Solari. Her face was calm, not angry. Her eyes were steady, not violent. The whole galaxy watched her speak. This is Admiral Rhea Solari of the Terran Union. Humanity does not come for conquest. We come for truth. Millions held their breath. For 60 years you erased Terra from the galaxy. You broke our alliances. You stripped us of science. You blocked our travel. You starved our worlds. You tried to silence us. And when we asked for peace, you ignored us. Her voice did not rise. It did not shake. It was cold and clear, sharper than any weapon. You believed humans would break. You believed humans could be controlled. You believed humans would never rise again. She paused. You were wrong. Every city, every home, every ship listened in heavy silence. Then the screen changed. Footage appeared. Secret files stolen from Council archives. Images of human scientists being taken away. Videos of Terran cities under blockade. Recordings of Council members laughing at Terra's weakness. Documents showing plans to limit humanity permanently. The galaxy saw everything. The truth hit like a hammer. Crowds gasped. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Even Council leaders stared at the screens with pale faces, shocked by their own history laid bare. Admiral Solari returned to the screen. Humanity does not seek your destruction. Humanity seeks your honesty, your acknowledgement, and your respect. Then she said the words that reshaped the galaxy forever. Terra will no longer bow. Terra will no longer be silent. Terra will stand as an equal power, and the galaxy will treat our people as equals from this day forward. The broadcast cut out. Silence fell across the capital. In the council hall, no one spoke. No one moved. The truth had struck deeper than any weapon. Finally, Councillor Vess stood and whispered, "We must accept their terms. We cannot fight this. We cannot deny this." Others nodded slowly. The room felt defeated, not by force but by guilt. Then, a surprising thing happened. A message appeared on Eclipse Prime's receivers. A surrender, but not the kind the Terrans expected. It was not a military surrender. It was something far more important. The Council formally recognized Terra as a sovereign superpower. They restored every right they had taken. They requested peace, diplomacy, and open borders. They invited Terra to take an equal seat among the galaxy's rulers. For the first time in 60 years, the galaxy listened to humans without arrogance. Inside Eclipse Prime, the crew felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. They had dreamed of this moment, but now that it had arrived, it felt heavier than they imagined. Rhea Solari closed her eyes for a moment, letting the weight of history settle. Then she gave the order. Deactivate Eclipse mode. Stand down weapons. The great ship slowly returned to its normal form. Its glow dimmed. Its gravity field softened. Its engines cooled. The entire system sighed with relief. Eclipse Prime drifted forward as the first Terran ship in 6 decades invited into peaceful orbit. On Council Prime, crowds gathered on balconies and rooftops to watch the Terran Flagship descend through the sky like a silver star. They expected fire. They expected destruction. But no destruction came. Instead, humanity arrived with calm steps and held their heads high. The galaxy watched. The galaxy understood. Too late to stop what had come, but just in time to change the future. The Terran banner unfurled beside the Council's ancient symbols. A new age began. A future where humanity was no longer silent, no longer weak, no longer alone. A future where Terra stood in the light, and the whole galaxy finally respected the people they once tried to erase.